Hey everyone, welcome back to Twinstrology, where we talk about twin flames, astrology, and ascension. I'm Marla, and today we're going to do a video on an important topic and maybe one that doesn't get addressed enough. But it's something that's coming up for clearing right now as we heal our separation wounds. And so I did want to talk about it, and it seemed appropriate because Valentine's Day is coming up in a few days as well. And that can be a day that can be very triggering for us as well. So the topic is going to be unrequited love and how do we deal with unrequited love? So this is a problem that many twin flames face because often we are in circumstances where we believe that our love is unrequited. Um, so let's talk about some of those things that happens when we're on a twin flame journey. The first thing is the absence of our twin. So when the other person isn't around and it feels like the other person is avoiding us or running from us or in some other way turn their back on us, maybe they ghosted you, it's really easy to believe that the love is unrequited. Another thing that we're often dealing with on the twin flame journey is one of the twins lying about their feelings. So very often your counterpart is going to straight up tell you that they don't have feelings for you. They're not interested in you. They're not going to leave their spouse if they're married for you. And they will put up a lot of barriers to the connection. So obviously that's very triggering. And it can be hard for us to see or understand based on how that person is acting that they're not being truthful with us or that we can't take them at face value. But this is a very common thing that happens. Another thing that happens on the twin flame journey is when you try to share about your feelings for your counterpart to perhaps your friends or your family, you get a lot of negative reactions from them. And they're going to say, how can you care about this person after they treated you that way? Or they're going to say, that that person doesn't have feelings for you. You should move on. They're going to make you feel embarrassed. They're going to make you feel ashamed about your feelings, all because they feel like you should move on. And in their own way, they're being well-meaning, but they're usually not in a higher consciousness, although it does happen where people that are very spiritual and in higher consciousness will also say similar things to you, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But usually these people, they just don't understand the journey. And so one of the things that happens to people is they learn their lesson and they stop talking about it. And they have to hold all those feelings in. And that can be, really painful in itself because it makes you feel very much alone. So, a lot of times I work with people and they just want to have someone to talk to, someone that understands, someone that is going to listen to them without judgment or making those remarks that are meant to shame or embarrass them. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that it can happen that people that are in higher consciousness or appear to be in higher consciousness also can make you feel shamed and embarrassed about your feelings. So you're going to get people that perhaps you go to a healer or somebody and they don't believe in twin flames. So they tell you that that's nonsense and that you should move on. Or a lot of times you'll be searching for validation outside of yourself because that's something really common on the twin flame journey because of the inner fear that the love is unrequited. So you go searching outside of yourself and you will go to, again, a healer, a psychic, a reader, and they're going to say that your person isn't your person and you need to let them go. You need to move on. Perhaps I'll tell you that someone else is coming in. And, you know, we have to take these things with a grain of salt, and we can't let other people's information take precedent over our own information. And actually, I don't want to get into this too deep at this point because I'm going to talk about it later. But yeah, you will hear that from even spiritual people who don't understand what you're going through. Okay, there's also this lack of 3D verification. And we're told as we grow up that if someone loves us, they're going to, they're going to call you, they're going to show up for you, they're going to be your knight in shining armor. And you have all these lists of requirements about what a person who loves you should do. And the twin flame journey throws all that out the window because you're not getting the 3D verification from the person in most cases, or you're getting conflicting energies from the person. And that's all by design. That's part of the process because, if everything was falling together in the 3D, then there would be no healing. It would just be a regular relationship that really didn't change you or advance you. So the lack of 3D verification, we have to start seeing and understanding that that's a positive thing on the journey. As I said, your twin might be married, and that can create the belief in you or them that this love can never be requited because they already have this partner, or you already have this partner, and you may not be able to see down the line how things could change. There's also a lot of multidimensional energy involved in these connections. So you're going to have a lot of past life energy, feelings, subconscious patterns showing up, and they're going to be subconscious very often. So you're not going to be consciously aware of them, but you'll be connecting to these other lifetimes where there's deep separation wounds, lifetimes where you weren't able to express your feelings. Okay, so almost all twins have had lifetimes where it wasn't safe for them to be together for whatever reason. Maybe they were different classes, maybe they were different races. Maybe they were already, married or in relationships. And it could even be at times dangerous for them to be together or to express their feelings. And, you can have lifetimes where you have just loved this person from afar. And you may even know that they loved you too, but you can't even speak to each other. That's very painful, and that does leave an emotional scar on us, and that can affect the energies that we're facing in this lifetime, and also deep grief. So past lifetimes where the other person died or the other person had to go away for some reason, and you internalize that as they didn't return your love. All of those things can come through. So as I was saying a moment ago, a lot of twins seek external verification that they're twin flames outside of themselves. And one of the biggest reasons for that, of course, is because they're afraid that they're living in an illusion, that this is an unrequited love situation, and they want to know, am I ever going to be with this person? And I think that a lot of reasons why people gravitate towards the twin flame journey that may not be actual twin flames, but they may be more soulmates. But it's like, if I'm a twin, then I have hope that we're going to come together, and all these things just playing out are just part of the process. But that's not to say that soulmates aren't going to reunite as well. But yeah, it's this looking outside of ourselves because we're afraid that all this love is in vain, right? And we want that external nod. But often what happens is we don't get that because it's all about trusting our own intuition. So it's you have to be ready when you go seeking outside of yourself for answers, you're going to get a multitude of answers. Very, very few people get 100% across the board. Yes, this is your twin. Because you're always going to get people that don't understand it, or maybe your energy on that day is not showing them that you're twins, right? Like if you're in a day where you've been like cutting cords with your twin all day and you've been MFing them and you want them out of your life, and then you go to a psychic, well, that psychic, based on your energy, may not see that you're twins because your energy field is very negative towards that person at the moment. But yeah, we have to be careful because there are people that are twins that then get told that they're not twins. And then that can send one into a deep spiral of depression. So important to cultivate your own relationship with your soul and your intuition so you don't fall into that. And that's why you get those conflicting answers when you seek outside of yourself, because that's your higher self saying, you got to go within, and you got to learn to trust what you're feeling. So it really doesn't matter whether it's a twin flame or soulmate connection, because what I'm going to say will apply to both of you, but I think it will particularly resonate with twin flames. So if someone comes to me with this situation, the first thing that I'm going to ask them is, does it matter if you're twin flames? If you found out this person wasn't your twin flame, would your feelings for them change? Would they go away? If you knew you'd never be with that person in this lifetime, would your feelings simply vanish if you knew that? If the love is real, the answer is going to be no. Those things wouldn't matter. I would still love this person. And if the answer is yes, and your feelings simply evaporate away from that person with this knowledge, then you know that that was just a karmic attachment. So let's talk about what we can do in those situations, or how we can look at things and understand things from a different perspective. So the first thing we have to do is accept that the feelings are there, right? If you answered no to my first questions, does it matter if you're twins? And if you knew you wouldn't be together, would you still love them? Okay. If those are your feelings, you've got to accept that those feelings are there. What you resist persists. You have to learn to accept what is, right? This is the primary teaching of Eckhart Tolle. When you are fighting against what is, you're driving yourself crazy. The feelings are there, and the more that you resist them, the more that you fight against something, the stronger those feelings are going to come into your awareness. So fighting against them is useless. So the first thing I would suggest is that you just practice allowing those feelings to be there. Just allow yourself to feel love for that person without judging yourself for your feelings. Feel the love come into your heart, and then feel the love transport itself through your body and then out through your energy field. This is probably going to feel really good when you just let yourself go and let yourself feel the love instead of resisting it. Because when you're resisting it, it feels more painful. But you can utilize this love to raise your vibration. If you're resisting it, what you're doing is you're shrinking your energy field. When you're allowing it, you're expanding your energy field. And that's going to raise your vibration. The resistance to the love, by extension, forces you to shut down your heart. This creates negative energy in your field, your aura, your physical, mental, and emotional bodies. It blocks your ability to manifest, including manifesting a loving partner, because you basically close down your attraction point. We do this a lot when we first meet our twin. At least if I look back on my twin flame journey, my first several years with my twin, there would be a lot of times where I would feel hurt and like I wasn't being loved, and I would just on purpose shut down my heart and be like, no, I'm not going to let this in anymore. F this, you know? And you learn over time, you go through a process where you become more and more comfortable just letting the love be there without needing to get things in return. And this is important because when you're in that shutdown energy, you're just blocking everything. And over time, this creates a deep pattern of grief and bitterness that makes it really hard to enjoy life. And we don't want to be in this place where we can't enjoy life. So the pain of the situation is not caused by your feelings of love. It's caused by your expectation of what love is, and that the other person is not meeting these expectations. And these expectations of what love is are not even our own expectations. These are basically programs that have been fed to us that tell us this is what love is, this is what it looks like. And if it doesn't look like that, you need to close it down, run away from it, pretend it doesn't exist. Or worse, that you're living in some kind of delusion. But this is why we're here. We're here to learn to love without expectation. That is what unconditional love is. To love without need. This idea is a totally new concept for Earth. It's like people just can't understand what you would love somebody without getting anything in return. Even most people that are unconscious, who even think that they love their children unconditionally, really don't love their children unconditionally. Or they might have the intention to love their children unconditionally, but their own unhealed wounds are really about like controlling the child, living vicariously through the child, having expectations of how the child is going to perform. And if they don't perform up to those expectations, then the love is temporarily revoked. So yeah, this whole idea that we're just going to love no matter what is a totally foreign concept. But that is basically what the twin flame journey is in a nutshell. Learning how to do that. So your person is going to create triggers. They aren't going to meet your expectations or the expectations. They are going to run away from you. They are going to hurt you, you know, at times. You're going to hurt them at times as well. They are going to say things like they don't have feelings for you, because all of that is leading you on your process. Our role is to look at that other person and say, I love you, and I just want you to be happy, whatever that means for you. And learn to accept that. That doesn't mean that the relationship is not going to happen down the road. It's just about us changing our expectations and changing our programming so that we become aligned with each other. And that's what opens the gate to the physical manifestation of the relationship. But those friends of yours that are very well-meaning, they just cannot understand these concepts. And that's why you can't talk to them about it. And you know, at some point you've got to just give up trying to talk to other people about it, because they will judge you even if they don't mean to, or they will make you feel bad about it. They'll make you feel ashamed. And how can loving someone be shameful? Hating someone is shameful, but loving someone is not shameful. If you are a twin and you're particularly working on this, so each twin flame union has different things that they're clearing, different things that they're focusing on. So some of you are really focusing on clearing unrequited love, probably because it's something you really experienced in other lifetimes, and there's a soul wound around it. And in those situations, your person is really likely to reflect these deep separation wounds. I would say, maybe having no communication for long periods of times and things like that can make the whole journey very challenging. But on a higher level, it can help clear things relatively quickly. So another thing that is important to do is really dig deep into your expectations and figure out what triggers you around this. Like when these feelings of unrequited love are triggered, or when your shame is triggered, you've got to go deep into that. For the majority of people, this is going to be deep wounds of the inner child. And you will need to do a lot of inner child work and really take that inner child work seriously to help you move through the negative feelings that you're associating with the feeling of unrequited love. So probably like your inner child has been abandoned in some way, but maybe like being emotionally abandoned by your parents in this lifetime or another lifetime can really create a lot of triggers around feeling like your love isn't being returned. And this can be really deep. So like, it's not unusual for me to work with people that are actually in the relationship with their soulmate or their twin flame, and they still have this feeling inside that this person doesn't love them. And no matter how much that person shows that they love them, they still have this inner fear that they're not good enough, they're not worthy of being loved, and they have a hard time accepting that love. So this kind of unrequited love has a lot of different faces, and it's not just, being completely disconnected from the other person. So this is another thing that my guides have shown me about this. They've shown me people having a tug of war and people pushing on this rope, right? And this fear that this other person doesn't love you, or that they never are going to love you, that you're never going to be with them. It creates a lot of this kind of tug of war energy with them. And, it's not something that you're doing consciously, but when you're dealing with a lot of negative feelings and they're about that person, that's just what naturally happens. So you don't want to have that tug of war, because that will also block up the connection. You want to be able to let go. So, what they showed me about that is that when you forgive yourself and you accept your feelings, then what you're doing is you're like dropping the rope, and you're not going to play that tug of war game with them anymore. I'm saying playing that game with them, it may not be anything happening in the physical, but in the 5D, that's what happened. You're having this tug of war going on. So you drop your rope, and then they don't have anything to fight against, and they can drop their rope. And then this kind of brings down the fluxes and the energies, if you will, the tension and the energies and that basically push-pull dynamic that we hear about in the twin flame community. The other thing you want to do with this energy is really work on clearing your negative emotions. Okay, you need to work on the awareness of the negative emotions. Like I said, what's triggering you, and then clearing that out. So you want to do clearings on yourself, whatever way is comfortable for you. You want to just clear your field a couple times a day, probably. You want to use the violet flame. And you can use the violet flame as not just for working with other people, but you can use the violet flame on yourself and just sit inside the violet flame, work with Saint Germain or Archangel Zadkiel, and just work on clearing out your own negative energy and your own karmic patterns. Ho'oponopono is great for clearing out these energies. Inner child work, like I said, and maybe going to do some energy work with someone as well could be helpful. And then just allowing yourself to love. And it's that learning to sit in the energy of love without expectation. But we want to get rid of the guilty feelings and the shameful feelings, or the feelings of embarrassment, because those feelings are very low vibration. When we look at the scale of, what different emotions trigger in us, those emotions are some of the lowest. And like I said, they can lead to a lot of depression and grief and difficulty being grateful and enjoying life. Another thing that can happen through the unrequited love feelings, if we don't take care of them, is you end up being connected from source. And I mentioned this in another video. This can be really bad. And it's kind of reaching a culmination this year for people who are experiencing this, because in order to clear the separation, we have to be connected to source, because that is ultimately the primary separation that we're trying to heal, is the separation from God. When we are disconnected, and so if you didn't see my last video, why this happens is when you feel like your twin is not returning your love, and that it's a hopeless situation and they're never going to show up for you, you do everything you can to disconnect from that, right? Because that becomes really painful, really heavy energy. And so you're trying to break free of that. Again, you shut down your heart. And God is connected to our heart too. And it's not even like we just shut down our heart, but when we're, for example, trying to forget about our twin, we have to block our intuition as well. And we have to block so many things, because like our twin is connected to all our chakras, right? So it's basically like shutting down your energetic field. And one of those is your crown chakra, right? Besides your heart, your third eye, your crown chakra. You're trying to shut all of that down. And that's how God and your higher self gets through. So this can really have some negative effects, right? You can start to lose your light. You can start to lose your power, and you can start to become really bitter and angry at God, and not want to know about anything spiritual anymore. But that may seem like a way out, but it's not, because your life will begin to fall apart, because you won't be on your path, you won't be on mission, you won't be in the vibration of love. You're going to be in the vibration of fear. So that makes it really hard to manifest things. Instead, we want to work with God for direction and for healing of our feelings that we feel the other person doesn't care about us. God does not want us to stay in pain. Okay. But the truth is, ascending by its very nature is painful at times because we have to confront all of our own fears. And to confront our fear is very painful. To confront our own projections and transferences can be very painful to see like certain truths. The way out of the pain is by turning to God and asking for God's help and loving God. And so I think if you are having a really hard time with this, if you have a really hard time opening up to your twin, then at least work on your spiritual connection with God and with your higher self. Don't shut down your heart or your intuition. And then you'll begin to receive guidance on what you need to do about your twin flame. So, like I said, we have to clear all our fears. And unrequited love is basically just the fear of being alone, of being embarrassed, being rejected. And these are just fears like any other fears. They're not truth. They're just a belief that we have. And we can come to terms with those feelings and heal it. Okay, this is an important one. Allowing yourself to feel that love for that person doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries. So I'm not saying that you're going to chase that person. I'm not saying that you're going to create a whole different set of expectations about that person. If that person has been very hurtful to you, if they have said hurtful things or done some hurtful things to you, then it's appropriate for you to have boundaries with them. It's important to understand too that other people are wounded and have compassion for their woundedness while having appropriate boundaries. Indeed, the very way that you're going to work through this energy is by learning to love yourself more. Because a big part of this problem here with the unrequited love is because there's a part of you that's not feeling worthy of love inside. So you're taking everything that they do as that must be a complete rejection of me because I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. But that's not the case, right? So it's reprogramming ourselves to see the value that we have, to discover our own self-worth, our inner power. And our capacity to love other people is part of that. Because if we don't heal that, then we're just staying stuck in some of our fears, and we're not going to let not only that connection in, but we're not going to let any connection in. That's why we talk all the time about needing to forgive your twin flame or your soulmate. And I know that some people are very resistant to that. But if you don't forgive, you're just hurting yourself and you're only blocking yourself. That doesn't mean that you have to not have boundaries with them or you have to accept bad treatment from someone else. But you do have to forgive and let it go. Or you'll just come around and do the same thing in another lifetime with them. So yeah, that brings me to don't take it personally. It's not about you. Very often, especially for twin flames, the other person is not rejecting you. They're actually rejecting themselves because they're afraid of getting hurt. They don't feel good enough. They don't feel worthy of you, or they just get so triggered by the feelings. Perhaps they get overwhelmed by the feelings of when you're around that they run away, right? So I think as we heal and we grow spiritually and we develop our confidence in ourselves and our compassion for other people, we understand that everybody's wounded, and how people react to any given situation is not about the other person, it's about them and what they're feeling and what they're thinking. The same goes for that, you feeling unrequited, you feeling like the love isn't being returned. That's your own feelings. That's not necessarily what the other person is saying. And very often, right, you're left with this kind of ambiguity of what the other person is feeling, because that's part of your healing and growth, is learning to find your inner strength within your own validation without needing the other person to validate you. So yeah, in my notes here, I have, if you let love in, especially love for yourself, you will realize that it's the ego that keeps you in this place of blaming yourself. It's not, well, that brings me to my next point, which a lot of people want to know. How can I tell whether my soul wants this love and my ego is sabotaging it, or if it's my ego that wants this love and my soul is trying to get me to move on? That's a really good question. And that can be hard to determine at times. But I would say the answer still goes back to love, because love is of the soul and fear is of the ego. So either scenario, the way to figure it out is that you need to love, because it's in the loving that you're going to hear your own soul's guidance. If you let the ego take control, the ego is just going to create more fear, more pain, and you won't be able to hear the messages as clearly, because those source messages, they come through love. So just let yourself feel that love, and eventually that question is going to be answered for you. So work on ending the resistance, opening your heart, and freeing yourself from the negative feelings and the blocks. And then you'll be able to hear what your soul has to say loud and clear. So what I want to end with here is how it's actually this part of the journey that is leading us exactly where we need to go. It's overcoming these painful feelings to just allow the love to be there, that is going to change humanity. Because as we end separation, and we've talked about the many layers of separation, we have to heal the separation with our soul group and with humanity in a whole, as a whole. So we have to learn to be able to love people that hate us, that are angry, that don't understand us, that have different opinions from us. Yes, on some level, we still have to love those people. That's how we ascend. That's how we bring the light. Again, it doesn't mean we won't set boundaries with those people, or we won't be in our power with those people at times when we need to be. But if you can't feel, it's like feeling love for a fellow human. If you can't feel that, then you can't build the compassion that you need to be able to step out of the ego and let people be as they are without trying to force a lot of judgments on them. So while this may seem so hard at times, it's important work. And like I said, those of you that have really had to feel this and experience this, bless you for your work, because it's challenging. But I hope that this video gave you some ideas about how you can work through that if this feeling is coming up for you. And I want to say too that this could become more significant over the next couple of months as well, because we're having a Venus transit to Chiron coming up soon too. And when Venus transits Chiron, it can bring up feelings of unrequited love and just the pain of separation. Okay, and because we're so much dealing with healing the separation, I wouldn't be surprised if some things weren't activated through that transit. So yeah, I hope this helped you, gave you some ideas on what you can do to work with this energy. If you would like to work with me, you can visit my website, which I will link below. I'm sending you all a lot of love and hope to speak to you again soon.